Okay, so for welcome all for everyone who's here. We have the whole committee, so we'll just go through and cover some basics. So in all of these subcommittee meetings or committee meetings of the General Commission, we record them for public consumption later and for our own note-taking value. We have scheduled today from 4 through 5:30 and time up front after some housekeeping for a conversation with you, sir. Appreciate you joining us. Before we do that, we're going to just cover minutes review from our last meeting and just talk about it in agenda. We have a very full agenda and there's some changes to it last minute. So for everyone's benefit, the recording has started. For roll call, we have all 4 members of the standing committee here and present. Everyone should have gotten the minutes today of last week's meeting. And just by show of hands, anyone who has not seen those or reviewed those so far, did everyone have a chance to look those over? Okay, so we'll have a second for discussion here. Can I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
I would move we adopt the minutes.
Okay, moved and?
I'll second.
Second, okay.
I don't know if I can second if I created the minutes. So.
We'll take Jane, she raised her hand too. So, okay, any discussion? Not hearing from anyone else. I did have one correction. I wrote different notes on the male-female ratio in county government from Mr. Wolf's presentation, and I had I think 163 female and 133 male. So I don't have those up, but can we just make that? I think the female percentage of county employees is higher. So that's the only change that I saw.
Oh, okay. Well, let's double check that. But yeah, you're probably right.
Any other input comments on the minutes? Okay, so Kevin, are you okay with adopting with that change?
Yeah, I would accept that as a friendly amendment and call the question to adopt the minutes.
Okay. So all in favor of the minutes as adjusted, please raise or say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No room for abstentions there, so good. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen really quickly and just show you what I have for the agenda for today. It was a little different than what went out, what went to the county, and a little different than what went to you yesterday. The only change over that last one is new business is actually kind of bulleted out into 2 proposals that came from Kevin. So consideration of a Coast Salish tribal acknowledgement within the county charter and room for discussion about non-resident position on any future justice and equity commission for somebody representing the indigenous populations. So that's what I have, same timeline. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And can I hear a motion to accept the agenda for today unless there are any changes?
A move to accept the agenda.
Great. Okay.
Second.
Great. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
I'm going to abstain because I don't believe the chair needs to ask for permission for their agenda. The chair has the right to submit the agenda.
Okay, fair enough. All the others who want to vote, all in favor?
I want to vote. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, no one else opposed and 1 abstention. Great. Okay, Sharon, would you mind doing some introductions and getting us started here?
Sure. Well, I'd like to welcome the Reverend Berto Gandora, who is here with us from Emmanuel Episcopal Church on Orcas Island. And Berto is a wonderful liaison between the Latino community and the wider community here on Orcas, and just very appreciative of your time today, Berto, to talk with us and to answer some questions that will help guide us as we continue to shape the county charter.
Thank you. Glad to be able to make it. Kevin had been hounding me for a couple of weeks, but I've been having eye surgeries and
Dog surgery.
amputation of my dog's leg. It's been a kind of a hectic. She's good now in the chemotherapy treatment part.
No.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
should, we should maybe just,
I should introduce us to
okay, go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, sorry. So we're a small but powerful subcommittee of the commission. And so we have Jane Fuller on Lopez Island and Kyle Davies on San Juan Island and Kevin Ranker and myself on Orcas Island.
Okay.
Orcas
And
rule.
Judy is here.
Judy Scott is here and Linnea Anderson are here. Yes. Did you know Judy was going to be on today?
No, Judy
Oh.
is part of the commission or just sharing also?
Judy is a guest today from the
Oh,
American
nice.
Public.
Oh, cool.
I roped her in after having a really wonderful conversation with her a few days ago, so I'm glad she's here.
I'm
Great,
glad
and
that Judy is
Linnea
here.
Anderson is also wonderful, been very helpful in guiding us along the way on this committee. And she's a member of the public, but her husband is actually on the commission.
Okay,
And she works for the county in the courts.
nice.
Would it be useful maybe just to let Berto know what sort of two of the key big issues are that we're kind of looking at as a committee after? Yeah, Kevin, did you want to?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it'd be great if for Berto, but also Judy's sake, I know you and Judy have spoken, but for Berto's sake particularly, but for others, if we could just give a little overview of kind of where we are in our discussions and what we're proposing potentially to give him the flavor of it. And then I think his input would be just really valuable.
Did our Mr. Chair for the day want to go ahead and do that for Berto?
Sure, happily. I wasn't sure if Sharon, if you had done that at all in conversation so far. Okay, so Berto and Judy, what we've been focusing on, so justice and equity, all of the committee work has come out of some of the initial sort of subject area interest that both members of the commission have and either brought into the wider charter review and update conversation, or topics and priorities that have been sort of gathered through community contact and meetings, town hall style meetings, of which we had 2 a number of weeks ago, in order to kind of see where people, to do a little bit of education about what it is that charter review does and doesn't do, but then also hear from people about what some of their priorities are for maybe updating or redressing some issues that they have with county government. So this committee, of course, is dealing primarily with justice and equity, and maybe a perception of not the lack of it, but a space that hasn't really had enough attention inside county government, particularly in San Juan County. So, the charter review in past episodes has dealt with structure and focused, in my view at least, on mechanisms to kind of achieve county government. Now we have some space, I think, to kind of refine how we govern and what we pay closer attention to internally. And one of the big topics, and one that we're focused on, is whether or not county government, one, represents the people that it speaks for and works for, and 2, whether or not it is accessible to all peoples that are citizens of and visitors to the county. So the tangle is how to, or the challenge, I guess, is how to make some progress within kind of the structure of charter government, and where do you make changes, what do you add, or where do you instill values, or create that refinement that we're talking about. So 2 big areas that we're discussing are, generally speaking, going back through the charter and evaluating language, and assessing where there is no language that talks about non-discrimination and JEDI issues, And then probably the place we've made more traction so far is with a Justice and Equity Commission that would have some oversight capacity at the county level on activities that are happening within the county and over the activities of different positions in the county. And so what will that look like? From where do you draw those people? What elements does that group pay attention to the most? And we want to, in doing that research, we wanted to hear from different sectors of the county community at large, and so by island or more broadly than that. And that's one of the reasons why your name came up as a what do I want to call it?
Resource.
What'd you say, Kevin?
A great resource to have engaged.
That's right. Yeah. So it's from that place that we want to continue our conversation and consider the insights and the experiences of other people and people who are citizens of the county and who are themselves decision makers and movers and shakers. So I hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that does.
Jane, please. You're still
sorry, if I can just add. Yeah, Berto, we've been, trying to do some research as well on what other charter counties contain, I think as Kyle alluded to, and there's 7 charter counties in our state. And it's been quite helpful to look at the other charters to see what they do and don't say about issues of anti-discrimination, et cetera, as Kyle referred to. And so, and also early on, Kevin pointed at us to the recent revision to the King County Charter that included a law and justice oversight body that was apparently actually established in 2006, I discovered, but it's really only in the latest revision where it was given some teeth, so to speak. And that oversight body is very specific to the work of the sheriff and law enforcement in that county. We're interested in looking more broadly at issues of equity and justice, and something we've realized ourselves as an all-white commission is that it's going to be pretty darn important in terms of justifying our work to speak to representatives of our county that aren't the 97% white majority that our county consists of. And so, so just as a little further context, and we're still very much in the process of gathering information and could do research endlessly, but yeah.
Great.
Kevin, go ahead.
Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Berto, just one other thing to add on, and I know you were engaged in it, but Kevin Carter worked just tirelessly on a resolution for the county to pass. And I remember talking to him, he was about halfway through that monumental task when I had this great conversation with him. And I said, you do realize that resolutions have no teeth? And he didn't. And he was like, well, it's too late. We've got 1,000 people signed onto a petition for a resolution. So what do we do? And I said, well, let's use that as a stepping stone. And I have really seen this effort as the stepping stone from that. So I wanted to put that in context for you. Like what that resolution says is amazing, but it doesn't do anything. And so one of the things when Jane first brought up the ideas that she brought up that ended up becoming this subcommittee, my initial thought was, oh my God, we might have an opportunity to actually implement that resolution instead of it being words on paper. And that's a lot of what we've been discussing, is putting that into law so the county has to do it, as opposed to holding up a resolution saying, look, we care, BLM, and then moving on.
Yeah.
So Berto, what I think we were after, and appreciate you being here, was largely your insights, and then a number of us had specific questions, and I'm hoping those made their way to you and you had a chance to kind of evaluate that. So please, the floor is yours, and we have 30 or so minutes for this, and we'll take advantage of every minute you have for us.
I'll share my thoughts. And first of all, I have to indicate it's difficult to be representative of a whole population. So I step with trembling heart, like I'm the representative of Latinos. And of course, it's one of the first issues that you consider someone from a specific minority or global majority, as I like to call them, as a representative of all of them. So I have to be careful. I am Puerto Rican. So Puerto Ricans, we have citizen by birth, although we have a strained relationship with the US. So I, for some Latinos, I'm another white guy. So that is an important thing that because of my privilege of education, of being bilingual, and particularly being a citizen makes a difference. So I
Mm.
step with a little bit of trembling talking about all the Latinos and much less. I saw your questions. I only know about Orcas. Lopez and San Juan is foreign country for me. So that's what I want to express. So I wanted to reach out. So we have two private Facebook groups of Latinos on Orcas, and I put out the questions that you all sent me to them, and I got several responses. Most of them were just thumbs up, and so the first thing they were really appreciative is simply the county asking. That was one thing. Oh, they're interested in us. So I think that is a big, it's a, well, not a big, but something. So to be heard and to be listened and to be asked, and that is, so I spoke on your behalf. This is the county. I doubt they understand very much what it means. I try to explain a little bit, but the
We
laws
don't
of the
know what
county.
we don't know what we're doing,
Okay.
or what.
So, so they were very, oh, thank you so much. Wonderful. So the various things that came up is first, those who responded to me were very appreciative. They say we feel very welcome on Orcas. It's mainly people from Orcas. I mean, all people from Orcas. We feel very welcome. And they gave examples. They said, the school, my child came to Orcas without knowing a drop of English, and the school took care of them to make sure they were helped in that difficult transition. And I had to sit down with a couple of them in class. I would go sit down with them in class, and I would just look at them and say, my God, how is this going to work? I mean, the teacher speaking English, me sitting beside them, trying to quickly summarize. I mean, it was
Oh,
like
you're like a
this.
UN interpreter.
Yeah, this was like a crazy, crazy thing. And Tess putting them in Google Translate, translating to Spanish, responding in Spanish, putting it in Google Translate to get them into English back. So nevertheless, I mean, like this monumental obstacle, all of them said, you work with our kids, you all, the school, you all helped us, and they were very appreciative of it. One thing they were really missing is that there was a couple of years ago, there was like they were called the homework club, and that was eliminated. There were some volunteers who would sit with them, with the kids, and help them, and especially these kids who were coming into the US and had no, I mean, some of them is zero English, and trying to help them do their tasks. That was eliminated. And I think the school has tried to do something different and to address the after school. But they, in general, they were very appreciative of that. Very appreciative of the food bank they mentioned. So many of these things are just nonprofits. Food bank, when we got here, the food bank gave us something to meals to eat. Although one tension I've seen is some of the Latinos they do very pretty well. And for example, some of them have nice cars and they receive responses from others, especially white people. What are you doing here? You have a nice car. You shouldn't be at the food bank. So that has been caused like, should I or should I not go? So is it I have to be like homeless? And I explained to them all that. But there was this where do I belong, and a little bit of fear of when do I. So that was a question. Another issue was the issue of their. They were very appreciative of Opal and the Surf Fund. Kevin and I and Judy been involved in that, of help with the rental payments, and that was very important for them. That's another nonprofit. And then the third thing, which also nonprofit, was the help. That was the churches, or Emmanuel. We brought in lawyers from out of Orcas to help them ask questions about immigration status, and particularly to elaborate. It was a plan when the former administration, presidential one, there was a lot of fear, and the idea was, if I get apprehended by ICE and my kid are in school, what happens to them? So we had a meeting, and I had over 70, 75 Latinas in. It was at the school, and the school offered their dining room to be able to meet and have this lawyers come explain the situation, and then we had individuals lawyers meeting with each other, creating it was affidavit saying, if this happens, I want so and so to keep my kids. These are the medication. This is their doctor. Things like that. My family, who's back in wherever, are these people, and this is their phone number, and things like that. So they expressed a lot of appreciation for that and wanting to feel that support of the community. Let me see what else I'm reading here. Yeah, the immigration status is an important thing. Oh, and fear. And that was related to the ordinance we passed. When was that? Like, Judy was involved in that. I think that's when I first met Judy. That was
The
like 5 years ago.
yeah,
About non-discrimination, not asking.
the Sanctuary County ordinance.
Yeah, that one. So one of the things they expressed was, most of them started with, we still have fear with the police. They have sometimes difficulty distinguishing one and the other. And one of the arguments when I spoke before the council, the county council, was this ordinance and not asking immigration status will give the sheriff's department here more credibility because they can't distinguish who's who. And for example, I had this person who was working in a hotel room. She calls me from her hotel room, scared, not wanting to open. She was cleaning the room, but she heard like the police was looking for you. It was our sheriffs who had found there were some burning documents, and it was her name, and they just wanted to return the documents to her. But of course, she doesn't know. She just knows there's the police, so I called the sheriff, said, I have a person. Is this ICE who's after? And he said, let me find out. He called his people. No, these are my people. No, they're not. That's not ICE. So I called her back. It's not ICE. It's the sheriff from the county, and they're just looking you because they found some documents that have your name, and they want to return them to you. Oh, okay. So there's a lot of fear, and that is one of the things that maintains them a lot of anxiety. Not recently, but a couple of years ago, I got a lot of calls. Is it true that ICE is around? We saw some van outside. So there's a lot of sense of fear. Even when we were doing the immigration, there was a family came with their little kid. I mean, little, like 8 years old. And he heard something about police, and he just started crying, terrified. So that is, I think, the main thing. And how can the county provide that sense of security? Recently, there was a man that was apprehended, I believe, in San Juan, and there were a lot of questions. Was this just out of the blue that he was apprehended, or was he apprehended because they the county told ICE and they got him. So there's a little bit of how does this work and how much can I trust? The so about employment, I was asking them, and they said the work has reduced, but we have maintained those who care to share with me. We have maintained our jobs, and that was. I haven't heard anybody that I've lost. Most of them are in the service business. Um, you were asking me about the people on Rosario, which were the two women. Those, as far as I know, are not here. But if I remember, no one was able to tell me what happened to them. As far as I can tell, they had left already. If I have a vague recollection, um, they had told me I would give them a ride to their place. First, that they live among this barracks with all the young people are, and they say it was party time right now, and these two older women in the midst of these 20-year-olds. So it was a bit much for them, these two older ladies. And I think they were telling me we're going to go back to Mexico to be with our families. So, but I'm not sure. I can't tell you what
Yeah, because
happened.
they were here for quite a long time. Tomasa was one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I haven't seen them again. But no one has told me, oh, I've lost my job, the people I know, which is not everybody, of course. Um, there's something else I was talking, employment. Oh, and the vaccines. So that's been interesting. There's a couple who are hesitant, and they're hesitant more fear of the side effects, but most of them are very, especially the young people. Yesterday and the day before, I got two young in their early 20s, 21, maybe 20 years old, who called me. Hey, Father Berto, can you help me do this thing and get signed up for the vaccine? But the main thing was, do I need documentation to do this and insurance? And I clarified, no, no, no. They didn't even ask me anything, not even the paper that says I have a reservation for this slot for the vaccine. They didn't, no, we don't care about that. We have your name here, go ahead. So they were really happy about that. And as far as all the people that responded, I already got mine, or I'm scheduled for tomorrow, which will be here on Orcas on the 27th. So those are the points I got from them. Um, but what they all emphasize, no one has ever, thank you so much for caring about us, and we felt really, really supported by this community. Um, Issues that are the ones that are more is housing. That is one of the issues that was really concerning. For example, we were discussing at OICF. There's a house that I believe some families, Latina families, who live in there, but it's going to be sold. And we looked at the Zillow description of it, and this complex has many rooms, a multifamily. Um, the great thing about it is that you can segregate the utilities and you can have many people come in. So our fear is this will become a vacation rental, and probably these, I think there are two, probably will be out in the streets. Another issue around housing, well, housing and just fear is Latinas who are here in the county in the US because they were sponsored or their spouses are citizens. And I've had three situations where they have received not threats, but either I'll accuse you of domestic violence and you'll be sent back, or I'm not sure if this person, because this person sponsored me, they're sort of in I won't say slavery, but in a situation pretty that they feel obligated to work for this individual. So it's kind of pretty fearful. And I had a conversation with someone who was really, really afraid. And when I explained to him about the sanctuary ordinance years ago, and particularly that our church, we had voted, the whole church voted for it, that if anybody was needing sanctuary, we would open our doors and they would be locked in, and the police would have to kind of break the glass and enter. And he says, "Really?" He says, "Yeah. And this is not me. This is the whole church has voted for you. Yes, you come in, we'll lock you in here." And he just burst in tears. So that sense of insecurity, and it was related to having someone who weighs over their head. I sponsored you, so I sort of,
Control you.
yeah. So that those are little things, yeah, that are not little things, big things.
Mm.
On another, there's another individual who was kicked out of their home in the middle of the pandemic with a family. And nevertheless, people from Orcas, individuals, got him a loan to get a house. And amongst it was a group of about three wealthy people who all pulled together some money and made some arrangements with him to the family. And I saw him the other day. He yelled at me. I was in front of the church. "Hey, Berto, you have to come to bless our house. We got a house." And I was, "Oh, great, awesome." So, so you have all those. Uh, so I'll stop here, and I don't know. I imagine there are many more questions, but those are the things that I got from them and things that I've experienced. And I don't know if it's helpful or not, but it's what I've seen and what I care and hurts.
Thank you so very much for that. So you have time for some further
Sure,
questions?
yeah,
Great.
no problem.
Jane, why don't you lead us off?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Berto, first of all, just thank you so much for being with us today, for doing that outreach on Facebook to try and get some sense of, of the people who are on those Facebook pages
Mhm.
as to how they're feeling, and very, very useful and insightful information. I have a question around what is quite an issue in our county, which is domestic violence. And it's an issue on Lopez. I understand it is on the other islands as well. And indeed, the sheriff, when you made a presentation to us, said it's probably one of the areas of
Mhm.
crime that they're most actively dealing with.
Mhm.
And so often domestic violence can be bred in households where there's poverty.
Mhm.
There's less education. This isn't exclusively, but I mean,
Mhm.
those can sometimes be factors. And so and certainly the sheriff didn't allude at all to any particular racial group that experiences more domestic violence than another. Not at all. Like, he didn't comment on that. But I'm wondering, in your work as a priest on the island, and in your work with parishioners, but also your knowledge of your island community, what is your sense of domestic violence as an issue, and perhaps within aspects of the Hispanic population?
That is an issue, and the issue of domestic violence and sexual assault are I've encountered in different variations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interviewing part of the grants committee of OICF, Safe San Juan's, and they were pointing out also that the sheriff, I think it's over half of their calls is related to either domestic violence or sexual abuse. And that was, and the increase, particularly on Orcas, of domestic violence. So they needed more people. They were trying to move someone from San Juan Lopez to come here because of I think it was doubling of hours and of individual clients on Orcas. But I didn't get any breakdown of those. It's more private, I imagine, of
Yeah.
Latinos.
Yeah.
But yes, I've encountered yeah, and it's a complicated issue, and I tremble because it's like it's not a Latino, but there is cultural different ways of understanding relationships,
Mhm, mhm.
and it's probably what we would consider not okay in other cultures doesn't it's different, and it's an adjustment of understanding how things work. And not only that, one of the things I wanted to it was difficult. It's just like labor practices, like um, many of the Latinos do their own business, so cleaning houses or buildings or roofs or painting. Um, and I've had some encounters with non-Latinos, and they were not clear about giving giving what do you call that? When you want, hey, can you do the roof? Give me an estimate. Bit or yeah. So
Yeah.
this is no, I don't give estimates. Like, okay, um, that would be something like understanding how you do a business, how we're not in our countries where it's kind of, yeah, I'll shake your hand, and this is a little bit different over here. So things like that would be helpful, I thought.
I'm wondering if the wonderful gentleman who we've chosen to do our roof spoke to you, because I had that conversation with him. I was like, "Can you give me a bid?" And he was like, I don't do bids." And I said, "Well, I really need to know an idea." And we had a wonderful conversation. And then he came back with a bid. It was
And
higher
that's
than anybody else. And then I was like, "Well, that's why I ask."
so that is one of the things I said. It's a different way. You need to understand a different culture. Things are done differently, and there's sometimes a mismatch of traditions.
And you know something, it even happens in the wider community.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you get an estimate as opposed to a bid. You better know what the difference is.
Hmm. Yeah.
Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Berto, I want to, and I've said this to you before, but no, you don't speak for the Latinx population, but you're a champion for the Latinx population and also for minority groups in general. And just thank you. It is
No problem. Yeah.
every time I speak to you or hear you speak, I am just overjoyed that you're in our community. So thank you. Um, I have a question, or actually a couple questions, if I may, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
to kind of hone us in on where I think you could be really helpful. So
Mhm.
I will say, personally speaking, I think the biggest thing we're discussing out of this subcommittee that we hope to bring soon to the full commission for support is this idea of a justice and equity oversight commission. And whether or not oversight is part of that title, what I hope is that it truly is an oversight commission. So it's not it's not like the resolution where it sounds great. You know, we have a lot of advisory committees who come up with great proposals and they sit on a shelf. And I hope that this commission will actually have teeth. And the original discussion began with looking at the King County example of a justice oversight committee that would be over the sheriff's department, the prosecutor, and the courts. And there are obviously limitations with the courts and the prosecutor on where the oversight can take place. There can be oversight over those departments, but you can't, you know, question a judge's decision, or you can't question the prosecutor's decision to prosecute somebody or not. But there's still oversight. My question for you is, do you believe that's something that is needed and can be helpful, is the first question. And then the second question is, you know, how bold should we be? My feeling from the conversations I've had with members of our, particularly our Latinx community, but other, I would say, disenfranchised individuals in our community, is we're not even close to doing enough. And while
Mm.
people may feel welcomed here more than
Mhm.
elsewhere, I feel like there's a lot that we could do to really make sure their rights are protected, and that we are truly, and I have to say also, the other thing that the commission would do in addition to anything that we're talking about right now is things like looking at name changing of places and streets in our communities that aren't
Mm.
appropriate, looking at how do we, and this is a conversation you and Judy and I have had a lot, which is how do we increase the relationship and the respect for the indigenous peoples of this island? So all of that's in there too. But the two questions are kind of, do you like the idea of a commission? And then the second piece is, how bold should we try and be with it? Because we can be really bold. This is the 10-year opportunity to rewrite our Constitution.
I think bold is, as a person of faith, this is bold is what we have to do. That's how we change the world. Um, for Latinas in the county, I don't think they're happy. I don't think they can think bigger. And for example, a commission or an oversight um, committee, they would wonder like, what would this do for me? It would be like, what else? I mean, I'm trying to survive. I feel really welcome. Very little. I mean, a couple of instances where they felt, but in general, overwhelmingly welcome. And I think that's all they're expecting. Um, Sometimes not even much. I went to translate to this woman in the medical clinic. She asked me, "Can you come with me?" And it was something they had to do an MRI or see something, which was, and she tells the PA, "You need to do this MRI." So how much does it cost? And the PA says, "No one pays for that. We can get you some help." No, 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 no. I'll raise the money and I'll pay it for me. But there's some institutions that no, 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 no. So there's this like we'll do it on our own and not much expectation. And I had to say no. And no, at the end, she gave me $40 because I have in the church, I have a little fund for to help people. She gave me money to give to the fund to help someone else. So it was like I was just in tears, like, oh my God. And this not a person who is rich. So when you ask me that question, it's like they're like, we're happy. There's no like not much expectation. We're gonna do this on our own, and we're gonna battle it. I mean, and that is, and when I hear people, oh, they're coming here to use our resources, I just give them this example. No, I mean, the people I know, they're willing not to take any money, even from nonprofits, just because they feel this is my health and I'm going to pay. $4,000 was the thing. The PA had no idea. I have no idea. I've never asked anybody question me how much to pay for a MRI because nobody ever pays out of pocket. I have to call them. I said, please do. I said, okay, 4,000 something. Okay, don't worry. Not now. I'll raise the funds little by little. And they did among the family. It's a very community thing. So they sell things and they raise the funds and they helped her. And that has happened a couple of times. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it was like, I think the community doesn't expect more. It's very little that they're hoping for, which in a sense, that's good, but at the same time, there's no much expectation of y'all doing anything, which is sad. And I don't know. Yeah.
Sharon, did you have a question?
Yeah, just it seems to me that that's very understandable when you come to a new country that you just kind of want to be able to be. You don't want to make waves, you don't want
Yeah,
to make
yeah,
demands, you want to be
yeah.
self-sufficient. So, I guess it's up to us to say what are we missing in terms of opportunities
Hmm.
to get to encourage people, and this may take a couple generations. I mean,
Hmm.
it may not feel safe to get involved in local government.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to draw attention to ourselves. Thank you very
Hmm.
much. That could be,
Yeah.
just making sure we have materials in Spanish when it comes to voter guides and whatever materials should be,
And
in.
good translation also. Good translation. Sorry to interrupt you. For example, the vaccines, it's slots, but they translated it literally, which is ranura. And in Spanish, a ranura is a hole, like a, yeah, slot in
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
like
yeah.
a hole. So I said, what they try to mean is there's space for these things, but it's holes for vaccines. And you kind of, what in the world does that mean? And the little things, and that's the big county, and the person who sent me, I'm sorry, probably it's not good. I said, yeah, it's a little bit off. I think they get it, but things like that, we're not communicating because it's a different thing. Holes for vaccines.
Google Translate definitely has its limits.
Yeah.
Jane, please, another question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, what you're speaking to, Berto, is a really important point, because I mean, essentially, as a Charter Review Commission, I mean, what we are trying to do is to better the government structure, and the local
Mhm,
government is meant to serve the people. All
mhm,
right, it's a service provider.
mhm,
I think that there needs to be, and one of the things we've been talking about and thinking about is there needs to be awareness raising within the government itself to support people in this population group to
mhm,
understand what services are available to them, to make those services make sense,
mhm,
and in their own terms. And so, there's work to be done on the part of the government as service provider, to be of support to the population, and those minority or marginalized groups of the populations that don't automatically understand what they're entitled to. And
mhm.
because there are rights to access to things that they indeed have. And it really is, it's incumbent upon the local government to equip itself to be able to communicate that effectively, so that people can avail themselves of services that may seem completely foreign to them,
Yeah.
but the manner in which the services are being offered is fundamentally important. um, and to offer it in a way that says, here's an opportunity for you to get access to um, uh, a session on how to write a business plan or something. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking of any
Mhm,
manner of
mhm.
things. Or here's your local community health center. This is what you are entitled to as a result of the existence of this center, kind of thing. Or, and so the consciousness within the minds of those who work for the government, who provide those services, needs to be awakened in a manner that, and they need to be tooled and equipped to be able to um, make services available to people that may not comprehend what's even available to them. That's what comes to mind when I think of what you're saying.
Yeah, when I asked them, when I said county, their frame of reference are two things: the sheriff and the justice. That's county.
Exactly. C'est
If-
ça.
When they,
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. There's
Yep.
nothing more y'all do.
Yep.
The sheriff's office and the justice system.
Wow.
It's all right. I was in the state senate for 10 years, and I
Mhm.
guarantee that 80% of my constituents thought I was in DC.
Okay.
You
Nobody
are?
knows there's a state legislature. They're just like,
Oh,
huh?
okay.
What?
Berto, for time,
Yeah, no
I
problem.
just want to say how grateful I think you've heard it. We're all really grateful for your time, and I'd like to think of it as a relationship moving forward. I think there probably are some other questions. My
Yeah.
last one for you is really, is there anything that we haven't talked about, or anything on your mind in your role in the church, or as a kind of a de facto community leader? This is rare government access time, and I think
Yeah.
it's clear we have some inroads that we have, and some we don't. Is there anything that we need to focus on that we're not talking about?
No, I mean, to avail myself, and not only me, there's a couple of other, Haley, Cruz Winchell. Um, there's a group of people, at least here in Orcas, and I imagine in each island are there are others that have very good relations with Latina populations here. So I would just avail myself to get communications. For example, when the ordinance, and Judy was pointing out, it was 2017, came out. That's one of the things I said to the commissioners, the council, when they voted in favor. Says, if you vote in favor of this thing, I will go back and said, you voted, you overrode the vote for the people. And it's not the people who told you what to do, but it was you, 3 councilors, who voted on your own in favor. And I will go back and say, your county took this in advantage. They took this in account that they wanted to do it, not forced by the vote of the people, but out of just simple justice of they see. And when I went back, so thank you so much. They were very appreciative. So any way the county can convey ideas, I'm able to facilitate that.
Outreach.
And there's nothing more. Yeah, yeah.
It's a big outreach job. Well, okay. I would suggest, if you're willing, then any other questions that we have to pass those on
Just
to
send them over.
electronically, or
Yeah, no problem.
you're certainly welcome to continue with the meeting. We have a couple other items. You're not obligated by any stretch, but
I just got another young man who just texted me, hey, Father Berto, can you help me get in line for the vaccine tomorrow? So I need to call him and get him signed up.
That's great. Great.
Yeah, there are still appointments. There are still appointments.
This morning, someone told me there were 400 slots available on Orcus still.
Good. Well,
I didn't know there were that many, but I know there were slots.
That's a lot.
Berto, I accidentally sent you a couple texts that were meant for Kevin, but they're anodyne. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Okay.
Who does this guy think he is?
They were basically just saying, I had this amazing conversation with a constituent today about really important justice and equity issues, and it was great. And so just to let you know, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to reach out to constituents, from our districts and get their insights and their knowledge, their experience, and find out what they're passionate about.
Sharon.
Yeah, it's great for us to have some guidance as to, what is positive outreach and what is too much and what might feel threatening, with the best of intentions.
Yeah, I think always is good. That's why I think my role might help. Like they feel safer, and anything is government, of course. That was the first thing. Who is giving the vaccines? And it's like a little bit of fear. And when the county comes up, of course, as I mentioned, it's sheriff and justice. They associate the county. Yeah, any outreach of the county is like, what is this about? I mean, is there any danger for me? And of course, and I'm generalizing undocumented, which doesn't mean every Latina is an undocumented person. So that's an important one to say.
Thank you for that. Kevin, I know you have to leave.
Actually, I just, my meeting is with Randy Gaylord, and I told him he needed to wait.
Okay.
That's not fair. I asked him if he could, and he said yes. So he was very supportive. So listen, one of the things that just struck me is, and we on the committee have talked about this before, and the commission has too. Our work right now is not the goal. Our goal is not to create a Justice and Equity Commission or come up with recommendations that go to the ballot. The goal is to make that successful and actually implement it. So the other area where at least I will be reaching out to you, and I think we will be reaching out to you, is hopefully the full commission supports this idea of a bold oversight Justice and Equity Commission for the county. That will go to the ballot this November. We're going to need to spend time educating people with regard to why it's important and why it can be really helpful. And then the other thing is we're going to need to make sure that commission is made up of the right people. So you are a name I would instantly think of, but there are others too.
Yeah, there are others.
And your help in reaching out to the right people to get them to engage will also be important. And I think that the biggest thing that strikes me when I'm thinking about that is what you said, which is the question of, well, we kind of do stuff on our own and we don't ask for more. There can be a lot more.
Yeah.
equity is, we don't have equity right now. We don't have equality right now. And just because someone doesn't recognize that they can have more doesn't mean that it's not needed. And so I'd really like to continue that conversation with you as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
I miss our CRC meetings. Like, I'm glad things are getting better, but I mean, not our CRC, our surf meetings.
Surf
I'm
meetings.
glad things are getting better, but I really loved the weekly meetings with you and Judy
Yeah.
to talk about how we were going to help people.
It needs a
Awesome.
revival. Berto, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, and if you think of
Take care.
anything that you'd like to pass on, you can
Sure.
reach any one of us. So
Yeah, no
okay,
problem.
have a great
Let me sign
afternoon.
up COVID vaccines now.
Okay, that sounds
Take
good.
care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I go.
Bye-bye. Bye, Judy.
Okay, gang, I still have a couple things, and I think we can probably move through fairly quickly without pulling up the specific agenda again. Next, we had space for any discussion that summarized what we heard from Executive Summers in our general meeting last week. And I put that there if we had time, mostly because, you know, there were some, I was surprised by some of the bandwidth that Snohomish County has for not only climate and environment, but specifically justice and equity. And I can't remember who said it, but somebody made mention of, you know, wish we'd heard from you weeks ago, or at the very beginning, we probably could have designed some of our specific work product around just copying or, you know, pursuing some of what you have. So that's really only a placeholder. Did anyone have any takeaways from that session that they wanted to share? Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 points. One not related to this committee, but it is relevant. But I'll circle back on, just touch upon that. I think what we heard from Executive Summers underscores why and also how we make this commission bold and strong. We don't have an elected executive who has the ability to think outside of the box, county-wide on a number of issues. And we look to our county council for that, but unfortunately, it's difficult to get things through the county council. And so I think we need to structure, one of the takeaways I had from Dave, and the other point was on the environment and climate work. In both situations, I think it screamed at me for why the climate and environment work needs to be housed in a department with an elected official so that it has teeth. And it screamed at me that this work needs to be truly an oversight committee or commission and not an advisory commission. Because if we're going to be bold and do the things that we're dreaming about, somehow my phone thought I said Siri. If we're going to do the things that we're dreaming about, we've got to give it teeth. And so that was my takeaway from Dave Summers, was that if we don't give this teeth, it's not going to get done.
Did you have another thing? Another item? No.
No, the other point was that it's the two things. One is that I think on environment and climate, it needs to be an elected official, and on this, it needs to be an oversight commission.
Okay. Anybody else? Jane.
Yeah, I found it extremely useful, the discussion and presentation that Dave shared with us. I do well when I type up notes to things. Sometimes it really helps me mentally process information. And so I'm going to do that for us, just because I want to have a bit of a record of what he said related to the stuff we're working on. And I'll share that with you guys as soon as I've done it. Because there were some really important nuggets. There are really, really valuable nuggets in there. You know, certainly it was incredibly impressive, the latitude that he has to, as the elected county executive, to be so intentional about issues of social justice, and that was just beyond impressive. I mean, it was, it really bold stuff that he's doing, that he's able to do. And so it struck me that then we, given that that's not what we are as a county, we're not that big. We don't have that big a budget, but what can we do with what we are? And something that I felt a little unsettled by was a comment a commissioner made following that presentation that was cautionary and basically said, we're not as big as King County, we're not as big as Snohomish County, and we just have to be careful about what we try to do. And I totally disagree. I don't feel, I think you have to be, we need to be more creative about what we can do with what we are. And then on Kevin's point about the oversight concept being, included in a title of what we're proposing to put to the full commission, I guess on that one, I feel a little more cautionary just because, whether or not we call it an oversight body is something we need to talk about in more detail because, because of the limitations to what we can have oversight over, it sounds like King County is still having problems with their oversight body getting subpoena power. That's still going through collective bargaining discussions or something. So they still haven't got it. And I think that I'm just concerned that there could be pushback that could really end up hijacking our overall effort here. And so when I put some text today about what this body might be in the paper, and I shared that with you guys, I was thinking a lot about this. And what is it we want this body to do? And that's what I hoped we could talk a little bit about to help us determine what do we want to call it. And I take Kevin's point in terms of you want it to have some teeth. How sharp do you want the teeth to be? And, is it going to bark as well? I'm joking, I'm being a bit facetious, but it's, what do we, I think we should be bold. I absolutely do. I at the same time, I think we need to be mindful of what we want to accomplish with it.
Well, we have to bring people along in the process.
Yeah.
Sharon, did you have anything else, Jane, from that?
No, thanks.
I'm aware of our time here.
Yeah, thank you.
Sharon, anything else from you?
Not specifically. I do want to look at Jane's paper, which I haven't done yet.
Okay. If you can do that with half of your screen, we're going to get there in just a second. So we'll close that part and move then into, we could probably do this together, but one of the other things that the next specific item on the agenda, there was some reference to the other 6, at least, of the other charter community or charter county, and Jane gave us the link to all of those. So I don't know if anyone else went through. I did go through each one of them and pull out the specific either non-discrimination language, or for some of those there's some separate ethics work. Whatcom County, I didn't find one in the Whatcom County document at all. So
Kevin, sorry, not Kevin, Mr. Chair Kyle.
Taking off all of you who do that.
I did all of that analysis is in my discussion paper.
Great.
It's already in there. And so If we look at it, we can just do a quick run through, and then I've proposed some amendments along some of those lines. So I can do a screen share if you want, but I'm conscious too that we are at 5:13, right? So
yeah, let's take the next 7 and look at that. And this may take another week to digest.
I think so.
We can certainly wrap back to it. Let's change the order a little bit. Before you do that, we promised we would do this last week and we didn't. So I'm going to share my screen just for a couple minutes and just make sure we're on the same page for next week.
Am I right? Am I right that public comment is at 5:20?
We're going to, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're right. So this is kind of hard to see.
Can't really see that.
I'm going to get there, hopefully. Is that any better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we switched these two. So we had James and then Berto, and I just wanted to double check. So for the sake of time, we did talk about having limited numbers of people from kind of each sort of group or representative group talk, but we did still express wanting to hear from Kathy and then do some direct personal interviewing to bring back to the group. So, and I appreciate that, Sharon, you reached out to Barbara LaBrash. I will follow up with her this week. But where, I just wanted to check in while we have this time window, where are we with Kathy? Jane?
Yeah, first of all, I don't recommend Kathy be a presentation to us.
Okay.
You guys might have a different feeling. I actually did have a chance to speak with Randy Gaylord briefly on Friday, and he actually recommended that if we're interested in understanding more about the Civil Service Board that oversees the Office of the Sheriff, there is one lawyer in the state who advises all counties on their Civil Service Board. And he thought a better thing to do might be is to talk to Kathy about how that board functions in our county, and then to have a follow-on conversation with this lawyer. And Randy actually offered to pay this lawyer if he needs to charge a little bit of money for giving some insight into the role of the Civil Service Board. I didn't talk to you guys all about this yet because it's just very new, but I feel Kathy's somebody that I could interview unless you guys all want to have her come speak to us. And if so, that's absolutely fine. I just haven't reached out to her yet. I'm offering to talk to her one-on-one, but if you guys want to hear from her, she has held that office, that sort of administrative office role for almost 20 plus years. So she sure has a county perspective on it, but this lawyer, like if we're interested in understanding what other counties do with their civil service boards in terms of having community representation that's broader, and by the way, that's one of the proposed amendments I put in my discussion paper, is that you'll see I've actually named some additional members that should be included through an ordinance by the county council. Anyway, so long story short, I can talk to her directly or we can invite her, whatever you guys would like.
Any other feeling from the rest of the group? Kevin?
I think either is fine. I think it depends. I don't know her well, so I don't know her willingness or ability to speak candidly about kind of what works and what doesn't. It might be better that you have a candid conversation with her and then share some of that with her, with us. I don't know. And the attorney, kind of the same thing, frankly. You know, the attorney can either be really good and really helpful. Well, one area where they would be helpful is probably what Randy was thinking about, which is legally telling us kind of what the scope can be, kind of how far you can go. I think that would be really informative.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd want to do then is push them and say, well, what do you think? Which is an impossible answer or a question to ask most attorneys because they want to go back to their legal background. And so what I'd really love to do is get somebody's perspective from another county who has thought boldly about this and be able to tell us kind of how things are working or not working. And I just don't know if we're going to get that.
Any other input? Sharon, did you have anything? Okay.
I went on the website of I think it was Snohomish. I've been in so many county websites in the last little bit. I'm pretty sure it was Snohomish, and if it wasn't Snohomish, it might have been Spokane, actually. Yeah, I think it was Spokane. And they have 4 community representatives on their civil service board. We have 1 from the town of Friday Harbor. Okay, and there is full latitude within the scope of that county board, civil service board, to add additional representatives as the county sees fit. And so what I've recommended is in that discussion paper, I've recommended we recommend the council as part of our recommendations to the council, not a charter amendment, because it would be something that would change in our code. We recommend to the council that they pass an ordinance to change the composition of that body to include a community rep from each of the 3 districts, in addition to the rep from the town of Friday Harbor. And I would also suggest we include that they include an Indigenous, a Coast Salish Indigenous representative on that body, as well as representative from the Latinx community. That's what I'm putting out to you guys as a suggestion. And so far as I can see, there's no restriction to doing that. But anyway.
So I appreciate your perspective and the place you're coming from. I don't disagree the mechanic part of it, but I think if we're going to make recommendations, and I don't, I trust and would entrust you to go talk to Kathy and hear from her. I think it's essential that we do hear from somebody internally and give them a mouthpiece before or while we're addressing this. So I would sort of insist on that for my part of it, or if we voted on it. But it doesn't have to be next week. Sounds like we should get on it. Kevin, you are muted, sir.
I'm muted because my chair is squeaky. Two things. One, you just said, so I totally support what you were just saying, Kyle. We should give somebody engaged now a voice in ours. The other thing is this might actually be a role for that attorney, which is I have a question of, does that have to be a recommendation to the county council, or statutorily could we do it within the charter? Can we change the civil service board within the charter, or is that mandated under state statute to be a legislative action, a councilmatic action? And if it weren't, I might propose that we just do it in the charter as opposed to recommending it to the county council.
For the sake of time, can we charge somebody with looking into that, or maybe in your proposal? Okay, you have it, Jane.
Yeah, well, what I found out was the last time that board was amended was in 2008 in terms of the composition of its membership, and the composition of the membership of that body is outlined in county code. And so when that amendment was made in 2008, I referenced the section of the code that was amended to alter the composition of that body.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
Okay. I'm gonna stop us for the time being and just say what I wanted out of this conversation. I appreciate it. We just need to figure out next week. And so we sort of have two things on the horizon. One is the civil service component, and the other is an Indigenous audience. I'd like to get back to this. I just wanted Kevin to have a chance to talk about it, and I know he's got time with Randy. We're scheduled now to have a chance for Judy and/or Linnea or anyone else who I don't see to open it up for public comment. So for either of you, now is your opportunity. If you do want to be heard from, if you turn your video on and unmute yourself, and you have our attention. Hi, Judy.
Hi. I actually don't have anything to say today. I was just here to listen and to learn, and I'm really just so pleased by what your committee's doing and how hard everybody's working on these issues. So I want to thank you, and I plan to just follow this and appreciate all the work you're doing.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Judy.
Hi, Linnea.
Hey, I do have some thoughts today, if that's okay.
Please.
I want to thank you all, as usual, for just taking up this issue. It's such an important one, and bringing in more community members. I'm also thinking about your presentation by Dave Summers. He was so impressive, and I really enjoyed that conversation. So thank you for being able to get people with that caliber and inspiration before the residents here. With all of that, I'm kind of been thinking about this, and also hearing from Berto, and something that I don't know that has been connected yet is that like public or citizen action, where I've heard you talk about ombuds and different things like that, but to me there's something that could be connected here between an ombuds and maybe someone who takes up justice and equity, that could also be very responsive to the public, because I think that's I filter a lot of complaints and issues from the public, try to do my best, and I'm grateful that eventually it could rise up to the judge if we can't resolve it. But I don't know that all departments have that same ability, and I certainly don't have the ability to do full investigations and things like that. So those are just some of the things that have been kind of coming around in my mind, hearing about fear and people being afraid and not having that avenue to make sure that they have a safe place to voice their concerns.
Thank you, Linnea. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but which committee agreed to hear the external. So there's some conversation last Wednesday on, I can't remember which committee it is, but they agreed to hear, or agreed to go back into committee and talk about the ombuds position, I believe, to discuss external citizen concerns.
Process, maybe?
No,
Operations.
operations. Okay.
There you go.
So
I-
Linnea, just so you know, I appreciate that. It may come up in further conversation here, but another committee, it sounds like the operations committee has agreed to review that and go back into committee and talk about that specific position and that topic. Jane.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I sent it to you guys with such short notice before the meeting, but I just finished that little paper half an hour before the meeting. But I've actually included, again, in the commission concept that I put out there, that kind of function. And I've actually also included that semi-annually, that commission would conduct public consultations, but that it also be a place where the public can go to discuss issues of justice and equity in terms of discrimination, racism, et cetera. And again, in further work that I've been doing, I came up with Whatcom County having a human rights task force, and it does that kind of thing as well. And so I've built that into what I'm asking you guys to look at. So we can talk about it.
You want to move to adopt your paper as our work product, and we just sort of put a wrap on all this.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Judy and Linnea, for your input and showing us your smiling faces today. I think we'll close public comment for now and get back into our agenda. And so, just before we finish today, we want to hear from Jane on her paper and her work, and then just make sure we don't leave today without a decision about a potential guest speaker for next week. So,
Do we want to wrap that first, Kevin? I mean, Kyle, K. Sorry.
I have a plan, Kevin. I have a plan. You and I are going to. I need different glasses and. Okay, so I think a few of us. I know I'll talk to Barbara, and there's potentially some other, there was some interest in talking with all of the Family Resource Center or Resource Center directors. We can probably table that till next week. But Kevin, what is your understanding of approaching either Jay or Sharon?
I formally
stand?
I changed my name now for Jane.
That's great. That would really confuse people. You should leave that for the big meeting.
My brain is definitely going to explode now.
As I said last time, so I've spoken to both Jay and Sharon briefly. I think that they would be willing to come speak to us. I think what's more valuable, though, what they're going to need is some specific questions on what we want to hear from them. And then they may ponder that and shoot us an email, or they may want to come speak. There's a lot going on right now, both personally in their lives as well as with the tribe, that is taking a much greater priority.
Sure.
I'm speaking to Sharon almost daily, doing other work. And so I'm sharing with her these discussions, and they are excited. The chairman too, Lawrence, is also very excited, and they are aware that we are having these discussions. And so it may not be Jay or Sharon, maybe we ask for a tribal council member, but we have to think about what our agenda is with them. And I think propose some questions to them that they'd want to consider. And so maybe we do that first.
Okay, is that something that we can do offline?
Yeah,
To
totally.
Kevin this week and renew that commitment?
Well, who's gonna do that though? Because we have talked about it in weeks past, but we don't have it yet. So do we want to get together and form questions, or do we want to just email some questions to each other? How do we want to do that?
That works well. I thought I thought for Berto, you initiated that. I was one of the initial proponents of this kind of move, so I would happily start that off sometime before the end of Wednesday, and then hand that kind of base question list around. If Kevin's willing to be the kind of the letter carrier, and I'm signing off. It looks like. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, I would propose, actually, based on the amount of work and Jane's input and productivity so far, I think next week there'll be plenty to do without a speaker. I don't know what people think about that, but we need to make that decision sometime without taking a bunch of time now. So either maybe Jane has a proposal on that too. Jane, we're just going to give you the floor now.
No.
And maybe we'll figure out some answers to these questions before we.
I just really hoped before Kevin leaves, if I could just introduce the 7 things I identified in that paper really briefly, but Kevin's just gone. That's okay. That's all right. So, well, I just wanted to be clear. Do you guys want me to speak with Kathy directly and report back? Is that what you like me to do with Kathy? Or
Aaron,
Kyle, do you want her to present?
I don't know yet. Like I said, I trust that you'll get a flavor of that at some point. I think, not knowing this lawyer, this, state person, I don't have a sense. I think you can determine for the rest of us whether you think she would appreciate an audience with us.
Fair enough. Why don't I make the call? I'll talk to her a little bit and I'll see if she'd like to speak with us. Sounds good. And then in terms of whether we circle back with that lawyer, which it sounds like we should, we can work through Randy on that. But again, it sounds like this person is a lawyer and he's not offering his pro bono time, right? So, but Randy said that if we really needed to have a good discussion with him, that Randy could actually cover that cost for us, for like his fee, his budget could cover a little fee for the lawyer kind of thing, which was really nice. And I take Kevin's point about whether we make it's a charter change or it's a code change. My reading is that it's not a charter change, but I could be wrong. So, and I understand why that's important to Kevin too, because it locks it in, right? So, so if you want, before we sign off, I could just take 3 minutes to just introduce you what I did in this paper, and then we can read it as homework and then discuss it next week, perhaps. Sharon?
Yeah, I just want to say, it feels to me like we should have a speaker every week now because we want to finish up our business. So we really need to finish hearing from people. Either we have a speaker or we interview people outside of the meeting. I think we should try to wrap that up.
Okay, that's a good point, Sharon, and I hear what you're saying. And Mr. Chair, I also wanted to add to what, well, building on what Sharon just said, but also listening to you and Kevin talk about, hearing from, from some Coast Salish peoples. I also feel that given the voices we're trying to give representation to, it's absolutely incumbent upon us to make sure that we've heard those voices. And we can say, we heard the voices of these peoples that are not the majority of our population. And these are the things that we heard and we're told. Because our commission is going to want to know that we've consulted sufficiently, right?
I'm concerned the other way, that we don't have time to hear all voices. And I think there are lots of people still to hear from.
So something I wanted to offer you guys too, because it's already on the list, is talking to Barbara Schulstis, who's the executive director of the Lopez Island Family Resource Center. That Family Resource Center serves minority and marginalized populations on our island intensively. And I thought that she could, I could perhaps do a bit of an interview with her and find out if it would be worth having her talk to us, or if she suggests and recommends we talk to some others. And so I can do that. I could do that this week and get back to you about what she might recommend, because there's also, there's another part of the population we haven't tapped into, and I have an entree into that myself through one of the teachers at the school, but it's the LGBTQ community, right? And, one of the teachers at the school started the Gay Straight Alliance at our school. And she did that some time ago, and it's quite a live body in the school and very supportive of young people. who are coming out or non-binary, what have you. And so, you know, that's what I'm talking about when, when I'm saying we want to hear those perspectives and be able to say that we did. So if you'd like, I can.
If you're willing, let's have you talk to Barbara.
Okay.
Sort of junior interview style for whether or not you think that she would want to talk to the whole group. And I don't disagree with you, Sharon, at all. I also appreciate that more than a week's notice is sometimes helpful for people. And so, you know, whether it is Barbara or you know, Jay or one of the tribal elder, tribal council members.
You know, it just seems like we haven't, you know, one of the roadblocks that we're hitting here is that we've talked to people, but we haven't gotten them questions. So, you know, I don't know. I think we were supposed to get questions to Barbara LaBrache. I don't know if we did. I have a feeling not. So maybe that's the next thing we need to do during the week is just start, okay, for this person, what questions are we going to ask? Like, I don't really know what we want to ask Barbara specifically. I have
Either
some.
Barbara. And either Barbara LaBrache or Barbara Schulteis, yeah. So I think this is important to work out. I don't necessarily feel the need to give Jane questions for the Lopez Family Resource Center. And I welcome your questions for Barbara LaBrache, but I don't necessarily expect that you'll have some in addition to mine. So, you know, somewhere in there is a better way to do it. So let's say this: do you want questions from us for Barbara for your interview, Jane?
I think I'm fine. And what I would do is share them with you guys ahead of time, right? And if you had any comments.
That's a great plan. And I commit to do the same with Barbara LaBrache for this.
And
week.
I can do the same with Kathy. Okay. I would put together a few questions and I can share them with you, and recognizing that those aren't strict interview guides, that the questions can evolve depending on the conversation. Right. So, you know, and in terms of Barbara from San Juan, I let you guys lead on that. I don't really, I don't have questions off. I have confidence that you guys are you'll know what questions you want to ask her.
I will start the question around, you know, Indigenous inclusion. I will start that this week, next couple of days, and spread that.
Okay.
Around. Okay, for time, I'm gonna share, not that I need to own it, but
I have one more offering, Mr. Chair, and that is, I was just put in touch today with a Coast Salish person who is from the Samish Nation, and he is a Lopesian. He grew up here, went to school here. He lives on an island on his family's land just off Anacortes, and the constituent friend of mine on Lopez offered to put me in contact with him and said that he would probably be very, very open to speaking with us. And it could even be that he could be available as early as Monday.
Okay.
And he currently works with one of the, I don't remember which one of the nations. And he does work on sort of cultural heritage and preservation stuff. And he's a younger gentleman with a small child and a wife, and he is so well respected and so well known on Lopez, and could just have some interesting perspective to share. So I can make that contact and find out if he might be available at the last minute.
Would you do that? And then, you know, to the point that you could kind of inform us if you feel like it's still worthwhile after talking.
Yeah. I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you posted on.
Let's do that for it, and it's the agenda's yours unless you. Agenda's yours for Friday to work out. Okay. Would you rather share your own screen or?
Yeah, sure. Why don't I do that? Because I've got the document open on my computer, and you guys, we'll keep it to 5 minutes. Okay? Is that all right?
Can you start while you load it by kind of sharing with us what you're hoping, you know, what's the next piece here? Is there a decision point?
And I just have to see, I'm trying to find which document because I got too many documents open, sorry. So yeah, absolutely, because I've got an idea on that as well. And okay, bear with me, I'm just trying to find it, I apologize. Here it is, okay, share. All right. Oh, that's not it. I apologize. Stop sharing that. No, what are you guys seeing? No.
The agenda.
Darn it. Darn it. Hold on. Okay, stop sharing. Hold on, guys. Oh, Kyle, I should have had you do it, but it's probably easier if I do it just because. Can you see my screen or not right now?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll start off by just telling you
Sharon,
what
you put that in the notes. She called me Kevin twice and she still can't screenshot. I'm just kidding.
I think it was more than twice.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, this guy's just too much on my brain. Okay. Which is really not good, is it?
Well, it's confusing because you guys are both chairs. I mean, you're chair of this and he's the chair of that. And
I know. It's so confusing. Okay. Darn
I've
it.
said this out loud a couple of times. So my dad is a Kevin, and people mess that up my whole life. So I almost don't hear it anymore. So
Are you serious?
yeah, you can't hurt my feelings. There's all through school. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Now I've almost got it, you guys. And if I can't do it in another 30 seconds, I'm just going to ask our, oh, wait, I got it. Share. This should be it. This should be it. Can you see it?
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Let me make you guys small, us all smaller. Okay. You got it? All right. So let me introduce this to you. It grew a little bigger than I thought. But anyway, what I did was I told you last week I would try and come up with something that would be useful for us to be able to create a clause as a proposed amendment on non-discrimination for our charter. And I also said I would try and get into some nuts and bolts about this concept of the Equity and Justice Oversight Commission. So it expanded a little more in the course of the last week because of a couple things. And so what this paper contains is 5 proposed amendments and 1 recommendation to council. And so what I've done is in the first part of the paper, I have got a discussion of A, B, C, D, E, and F in terms of what would be the proposed amendment and what might the wording be. And I did that for A through F. And then at the back end of this paper, and I'll skip forward, I looked at sort of, this was more my starting point, which is what issues were being kind of examined or considered. Well, first of all, what do the 7 county charters in Washington State say about issues of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion? And I built off what I learned from MRSC some time ago that I shared with you guys.
Jane, can I interrupt you?
Yep.
Can you retitle that section, the issues examined? These are findings, essentially, and I think this is going to help us moving forward.
Sure, absolutely.
Because this is exactly what I was going to recommend, is that we start some kind of catch-all.
Sure.
For findings, and you've done a lot of it. So
okay, I've just made a note of that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, not at the moment, but at some point. I think that's exactly what these are. Great.
Excellent. So what and we can build on this piece more. So what you'll see is, and this is what I was telling to you previously, Mr. Kyle Davies, Chair, that I took these clauses that I found in the other charters and I plopped them in there. The other thing I looked at was what I was finding in terms of what other bodies exist within the other 6 charter counties that we could look at as examples. So there I put the clause on the Commission on Human Rights that was formed. This is a link to that website. Pierce County Charter.
I did the same thing.
Exactly. I'm sorry, but at least now you're familiar with it. I found a couple other things of this nature in different charters. Whatcom County, I found this Human Rights Task Force. Also, and there's a link to it. They also passed a resolution in December declaring racism a public health crisis. And then, so I was just doing background research and dumping it into this paper, okay? And I'm waiting to hear back from MSRC on the question I asked them about this, which is what other bodies that might have an oversight function possibly exist in these other 6 charter counties. So I'm waiting to hear back from them on that. Okay, so let me pop back up and show you what I've done here in terms of proposing language, all right? So this is just the example of A. So inclusion of non-discrimination clause under general provisions article of the charter, consistent with the placement of such a clause in 5 of the 7 other county charters. And then that's, I reference examples under the issues section. So this is my proposed text, okay? And what I did was I drew off the clauses in the other charters. I thought about which one kind of spoke most to the work that we've been doing as a committee.
I bet it was Clallam County.
This one was, no, it's a combination. It's mostly King actually, and it's some Clallam. It's I've played with them. I haven't just borrowed their text. I've played with the text a little bit. Okay. And so King County talks about this second paragraph, which is the county shall not enter into any contract with a person, firm, organization, corporation, or non-governmental entity that discriminates, and then using the same language on the basis of sex, blah, 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 blah. I don't know whether we want to have that in there in our anti-discrimination clause as well or not. I, as part of F, have now suggested a proposed amendment to section 10.20 in our charter that is specific to the clause on purchasing and contracts, claims and bonds, that builds our anti-discrimination clause into that clause or that section. So when you read it through, and I did that based on discussion with Judy Wolf, actually. And so I can tell you more background about that next week. So that's what I did for our non-discrimination section. This idea, a declaration on anti-racism and equal rights of all peoples, was an idea I got from a Lopez constituent today, actually. And he's actually a Quaker. And the Quakers have an anti-racism committee, and they also have a committee that discusses issues of Coast Salish nations, concerns, and all the rest of it. Anyway, the notion of a declaration, what this constituent said to me, our anti-racism committee and our Quaker group of it's a group that spans all the islands. They felt like, wouldn't it be amazing if this county declared that it was an anti-racist county, an anti-racism county? And so I just threw that out for you guys to chew on it. I am wondering whether the proposed Bill of Rights might do that instead. I don't know. And so we can talk about it a bit more. So it's kind of a crazy idea, but I liked it. And I broadened it to, equal rights of all peoples, not just anti-racism. Then here's my verbiage and also description of this Equity and Justice Commission. So I don't know where it would land in the charter. I'm suggesting it land under Article 2, which is the County Council, and a new section 2.32. And you guys can have a look and see if that makes sense, and we can talk about it next week. So
why did you pick that spot?
I picked that spot because in looking at the Human Rights Commission clause in the Snohomish Charter, it fell under the executive roles of the county government, and our charter it's not laid out that way. And so it was it's awkward. I was having a hard time trying to figure out the right place for it.
The same is true for carving out any executive power or authority for the climate commissioner. I hear that concern. So that's a good challenge. Yeah, where does this live? Actually, where does any of this live? Maybe it gets its own section.
Yeah, and so that's what I've been mulling over as well, but I definitely wanted to talk to you guys about it. But that's where I landed. I just wanted to land somewhere, and that's the best place I could figure to land. So that's what I did. And then I put some verbiage in there, and that was borrowed a bit from the Human Rights Commission clause from Snohomish. And then I referenced our new proposed section 10.10, which would be on anti-discrimination. So here's what I want you guys to take a look at in the next few days is, title, do we include the word oversight or not? Definitely we want to talk about that. I outlined what I thought its purpose and mandate could possibly be. This is all subject to discussion. And it would reference the other places in the charter that we're going to propose be amended. Okay, that might pertain to human rights language in the preamble, Bill of Rights language in the Bill of Rights, anti-discrimination clause, possibly a declaration. Okay, so quickly, membership. And again, I was This is a brain dump, brainstorm. Membership, you'll see like 50% female, county government reps, elected and appointed, local citizens, chair should be a member of the community. So this is what I propose in terms of representation. One council member who's dedicated to it, county manager.
We take
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
The chair should be a member of the community, meaning not one of the other, not from another source, or
Not from an elected or appointed official of the
okay,
government.
as opposed to all members. I think it was Kevin's suggestion that we have a seat for an Indigenous person who wasn't necessarily even a current resident of this county.
So that's point number 4.
Okay.
One representative from the Coast Salish peoples, designated liaison person with the tribes. So number 3 is, so 2 county manager, 3 rep from the courts. Skipping over 5, 4 to Kevin's point, 5, someone from the LGBTQ community, 6, somebody from the Latinx community, 7, Black community, 8, Asian community, 9, representative of the youth, young population, and 10, a religious community leader.
Sharon has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sharon.
Why would you have a representative from one religious community?
Well, that's a very good question. And I wanted to talk to you guys about it. So what I was thinking was, and I'm looking at my screen, I'm not looking at you guys, I hope you don't mind. I was thinking that you want a rep there who brings a religious perspective and could possibly be someone who can facilitate meaningful dialogue among and across religious communities in our county. And I know religious leaders who do that. I know some religious leaders who, even though their religions are quite different, they have conversation with each other. And so I just think it's important that the religious community of some sort or other is represented not on that condition but understanding that religious leaders in our county talk to each other. That's my perspective.
Okay, I'm not really comfortable with that, but
So
Okay.
I'm going to make a proposal. I think actually, and I don't want to. I'd like you to get through the rest of it, but this needs a work session.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have time, so I'm going to
Yeah.
propose actually that we have one, if not this, in the bridge between today and next Monday,
Sure.
then a work session. I know you're traveling, but like Sunday for a couple hours, or I need to
Yeah.
digest it a little bit. But
For sure.
anyway,
for sure.
continue.
Yeah,
on.
and Sharon, this is all for discussion, eh? Like I'm feeding our group with some stuff, right? Just to get going somewhere on some of these
Oh,
things.
and I really appreciate all the work that you put into this.
Oh, sure, no problem. And my pleasure. And I knew that I want to be challenged on this stuff. I want us to challenge each other and explore our thinking, right? So I just knotted out some tasks, right? And honestly, this is just like blah 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 blah. Some of the aspects of the functioning of it. You wouldn't want to specify a dollar value for a budget, but they need to have some kind of budget. So I've tried to put some nuts and bolts in there together. As you can see, that's kind of what I did.
I have this is really great. Great
Yeah.
jumping off point. I have 2 requests.
Yes.
One, are you familiar with Word enough to put the draft watermark on this?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I would do that, and then I would ask that you maybe sort of highlight or bring to the top, in the title you have discussion paper, make that more prominent so it's
Okay.
clear, because now this
Sure.
is shared on screen, and so
Oh, very good point.
this
Thank
becomes
you.
a public document and looks, I can just tell you from experience, now it looks like a roadmap
Oops,
instead of
okay.
a conversation piece. No, it's good. We got to get here. So
Okay, excellent. So I'll do that. I'll watermark it and I'll get like in big bold up top discussion paper, because that's what it is. Yeah. Okay, so then D is, recommendation to County Council for revision to County Code Section 2.10.0.090, Law and Justice Council. This is what I was telling you guys about before. That we may want to make a recommendation to County Council to create an ordinance that changes the composition of this council to include 3 additional community reps, 1 from each of the 3 districts, 1 rep from the Coast Salish nations who can act as a liaison with the Coast Salish tribes, and 1 rep from the Latinx community. I'm going to be really bold and say I included representation from those 2 groupings because I think they're probably the ones that intersect with law enforcement most frequently and intersect with the judges, with the judicial system most frequently, among the minority and marginalized populations in our county. I'm totally prepared to be challenged on that. But anyway, again, this is food for thought, okay? I just wanted us to start thinking, if we wanted to broaden the membership on that Law and Justice Council and have it be representative of the community, who would we want on it? So that's just my couple cents on that. If we find out we can change it as in the charter, which I don't think we can, fair enough. We can go for that. We need to find that out from that lawyer who Randy told me about. Okay, so then number E, this might fall onto our operations committee though, because it was something that that Maureen spoke to, and that is, so that's why I said I'm going to talk to Maureen and find out if this is something they're working on or not. But I'm proposing that we have, you guys might recall that there was that clause exemptions under 8.20 and how that felt somewhat unsatisfactory even to James Wolfe and Mike. And so I think I borrowed this clause from Pierce County Charter, and I made reference in it to what we're proposing as a new anti-discrimination clause, or non-discrimination clause, actually.
That's persistent enough. And I have this as a note for conversation today, and we won't have time, but that's a persistent allowance across all the charters, as if it were as if it were somehow state statute. And I don't know the origin of those other, contractors, members of boards and commissions, the elected officer and their 1 deputy, or the entire administrative staff. That rings too repetitive to not somehow be addressed somewhere else, which doesn't make it right, but may make this items 1 and 2 a little more difficult to incorporate. So I wrote a note to actually pose this question to Randy.
Okay. Yeah, and
okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
2 more minutes. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, I also noted that they they have in their charter, Pierce County, a personnel board. And I thought, well, that's a very interesting concept, particularly given that we've been discussing how, and Kevin's been talking to us a lot about how when people are appointed to boards and commissions, there's not very good due process there, and transparency and accountability, and people who apply and whether they're accepted or not. So I thought the notion of a personnel board was interesting. So that's why I just threw that in there. So we can talk about that as well. I don't know whether.
Wow, Jane, this is a lot of workload, a lot of time.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I've just been doing a lot of, I don't know, on the side of my desk research. And okay, so here we go. This is where Judy talked about the importance of having sort of non-discrimination, anti-discrimination captured in the manner in which the county council conducts, or the county conducts its business, in terms of, purchasing supplies, services, materials, equipment, awarding contracts, blah, blah, blah. And you might recall both James and Mike talked about trying to do some proactive stuff and trying to get, local businesses supported more in some of the contracting and procurement that they do. And by the way, I've sent them both City of Seattle language around that and a website there, as well as the guidance on that from UN Women. I've sent that off to both of them. I didn't hear back, but anyway, I told them I'd do that, and I did. So yeah, so that's the last kind of thing I threw in there. Okay. So this is just a big brain dump, but I was hearing, I keep hearing how much, how tight we are for time and all the rest of it. And so I just thought I'd dump this on you guys.
It's a good dumping.
So,
It's great. The question I have is what extent, and I have this question for Catherine, to what extent does this need to be shared intentionally? So no one, Lene hasn't asked for a copy directly, but that has happened in other meetings. And I'm not sure exactly, for transparency, it might need to be handled, but I would pose that question to Catherine, just see if she needs a copy of this, because she's not CC'd on any of our internal committee
yeah.
conversation.
Listen, yeah, no, I hear you, Carl. Frankly, this is just still too much of a working draft, in my opinion. This is Jane's working draft to enable us to have a work session. So I'm not comfortable with it going out as is at all, because this isn't, I just would like to have a working session in the next week. Then we can say we've got a working paper, not just a discussion paper, but a working paper. But this is a discussion piece that I crafted. Right. I didn't consult with you guys at all. So
yeah, no, I hear you. Just one of the dynamics of government by Zoom.
I know. And so, hey, it's fair game. If somebody wants it, they can have it. I'm not worried about that. It's got to be with that proviso. Okay.
All the more reason just to plaster it with all of that.
Yeah, and I'm even going to footnote, after discussion paper, I'm going to footnote that I compiled this independently so that our committee could have a working session together on it. Okay, I'll footnote it in that regard. So if anybody, yeah, okay. It covers us up a little bit more in that regard. Okay, so by the way, I just wanted to say, Kyle, about the notion of reaching out to Randy. The only reason I reached out to Randy was because I was not comfortable with the way he sent that all commission email about discrimination in the charter. I wasn't comfortable with that at all, because it was unsolicited advice, the way I took it. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with him around that. That's why I reached out to him. And I would maintain we be very mindful of what we ask him for advice on. Okay, because as Kevin has told us, we want to have more clear terms what we're needing advice on before we go there, because you may not like the answer you get. So I think we need to be very cautious about what we ask his advice for.
Well, I still have questions about that context piece. Where is it advising and where is it, that's a distinction that's challenging to make if you're posing questions. So this is a hypothetical, and I'm not a lawyer, you are, and we're having this conversation consistently at Process about the extent to which we can look outside of the county, not for legal advice, but for the perspective of people from the legal field, which is definitely, in my view, that's different.
It's
in
research.
others' view, that's not, that isn't so parsed out. So I know that we're a little less, there's room to further specify the role that Randy's office plays at any given time until we're ready to write language, I guess is.
Right. And I had some discussion with him about that on Friday. He just would like to be kept a little bit more in the loop than what he's been. That's my understanding. But look, we can ask, MSRC provides, research information that's provided by people who have legal backgrounds. Okay. We can dive into other counties' charters and explore what they say and talk to those officials and get ideas. Like, we're not getting legal advice per se. We're gathering information. And so I hear what you're saying, Kyle, and but that's part of why I talked to Randy, because I said, look, we're still in the discussion stages around this. We're not at a stage yet to put something to you and say, what is your legal advice on this? We're still conceptualizing. And so that's why I would rather, for example, when you said you might talk to Randy about the issue of, how anti-discrimination or non-discrimination can be sort of infused in the different places in the charter and whether that's possible or not. I would rather get clearer on where we think we might want it before we ask that question.
No, I guess I didn't mean to suggest that. What I was looking for is all the other charters, or 4 out of 6, if not 5, have that exceptions list that talks about
Exemptions.
yeah, and I'm not clear on why that's so pervasive. Is that, and that's just, that isn't, I'm not interested in whether he thinks we can manage to challenge that in our own document or not, but I don't know enough about, and MRSC is an obvious, they either will know or won't know why that's there. I'm sure they will. So
I would lob the question at them, actually. I've made contact with this guy, Brian Katsuyama. I can send you his email address at MSRC. And I said, if I have any follow-on email questions, should I write to you? And he said, yes, just write to me.
okay.
Okay.
All right. So for agenda, the only other piece was new business, and Kevin proposed those in writing. I think they need time for him to. There isn't anything new there, and I think they've both of those have come up in some manner already. I don't know that we have to make a decision about that now, so
Yeah.
I'm going to table that for next week. Sharon?
Do we want to set a date and time to have a working session?
I want to. Who meets on Sunday? Which one of the committees at least meets on the Sunday? I think.
Do they?
Evidently not one either of you are on. So
No.
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 I could meet on Sunday if you want. That's actually my clearest day. I could meet other days too, but
I don't really want to, but I want to, and I see. The only thing that would prevent it, I think, is Kevin not being able to be there. But what I would like in the meantime, and I think Jane's asking for this, is for us to consume this, and obviously can write on it and comment on it, and then we've said this a bunch. I sense the pressure of time, and think that one, we'll have to report back to the general body again soon, and two, we need to start formulating the bones of what we want. And
Yeah.
Jane, you've really done that here, which I really, really appreciate. So
Thank you very much. No.
we want to set a time on Sunday. What's the feeling of the?
Is Kevin available? Do you know?
We don't know, but let's suggest a time, not too early.
Yeah, I'm completely on my own. I'll be free as a bird to have meetings whenever I want. So I'm available whenever works best for you guys. So
You wanna say
like 10 in the
one-
morning on Sunday the 2nd. Is that?
is it too early?
I saw your eyebrows, Sharon.
Yeah. I was going to say
11?
I was going to say 1 or 2, but
Okay.
I'm flexible on that.
One's
I
fine.
could do the morning.
I just think, if half a day is
Oh, yeah.
committed and half a day is free, it's more
Yeah.
palatable.
That would be okay.
So I'll make that recommendation then, pending Kevin's availability. I will inquire with him, and I will set that up. There'll just be sort of an unchaired working session. I don't think we don't need a week's notice for a work session, right? Week's notice with
No.
the website. Okay, I'll double check with Catherine. I don't think so, or with Olivia. Okay, in the meantime, unless you hear back from me, that'll be our planned window. And the goal at that point will be this, making some progress with that multi-part document, and having a set plan for how to use the Monday meeting time.
Yeah, that's a good plan. So I'll circle back to you guys on my my conversations with Kathy, with Kathy O, with Barbara Schulstis, and this gentleman named Sam Barr from the Samish Nation, and let you know. And if it looks like Sam might be interested and available to talk to us next Monday, we could explore that. Because I'm also conscious of dealing with these really high level leaders in the Indigenous community and these First Nations, and people, the higher level they are, the busier they are, and the harder it is to get them, and the more formal it becomes. And my sense is this guy is a little less formal, and that maybe is better suited to us. And he's often referred to by people to get a valuable perspective, and he respects, he doesn't have this, don't like to talk to white people kind of thing. So he's apparently a very good person to speak with about Indigenous issues. And in fact, he said it's better when you're trying to get inclusion of First Nations peoples in stuff that you want to do, that you don't name a particular tribe, but you refer to Coast Salish peoples. And because there's a lot of, as Kevin said, there's politics between the tribes. So anyway, I think he could offer some very helpful perspective to us.
Okay, well, I look forward to what you learned from him.
Okay, sure. So I will flip the paper back to you guys, watermarked, footnoted, and discussion paper very clear. And hopefully, not hopefully, I mean, if we could ask for it, we could ask for it, but I really would prefer the next version of it be what we make more available on the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sharon, thanks for all the note taking so very
Yes.
much. So we approved the minutes. I will pass those on to Catherine. I'll get clarification on whether we need to postpone because I don't remember that a work party or a working session needs to be posted a week out, but I'll let you know that.
I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Okay, any other final new business?
There is one piece of final new business I forgot about completely. I'm sorry, you guys.
Happy birthday. Okay.
Whose birthday is it? Okay, I have received from Mike a week ago that data, right? I told you about, remember I told you about that data
Yes.
okay. So I need to still mine it a bit, and I'd like to present to you some higher level findings of that data to you, okay? Because I also feel that is going to be very much findings of this group too, right? In terms of understanding the makeup of our county government. And so, it may be that I provide a presentation to the full commission, because it also helps our commission get to know more about our county government in terms of its makeup. So that's going to take a bit of work. That's part of why I'm going away, so I can get more work done. But I want to share that. I want to share that with you guys.
Okay. I appreciate you doing that too, and that Mike was so responsive. That's actually a pretty quick county turnaround, I think.
Yeah, no kidding, and it's very
Okay.
comprehensive. Yeah.
Sharon, last chance.
This is data you got from Mike Thomas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On the makeup of the workforce of our county government. Yeah.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
45 minutes late. We just changed our meeting length, I think.
Sorry.
Do we have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Yay.
Nobody's opposed. Okay, I'm stopping the recording.
Okay. Thank you, you guys, and thanks
Okay.
for your forbearance in putting up with that paper.